Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Sovereign Systems Institute Ministry Wednesday. Good to see everyone. A quick reminder, this session is recorded and will be published on Sovereign Signals YouTube channel for ministry transmission purposes. You may participate with camera and audio off if you prefer, though video presence strengthens the field. I will open our ministry. We gather as sovereign beings under the lawful design of life encoded within each of us. In this sacred space of the Sovereign Systems Institute, we pause to recognize our jurisdiction, our capacity, and our contract with the natural order. May our words and decisions align with the resiliency code and generate sovereign wealth for ourselves and all who will follow the resilient path. Tonight, we're building on last week's 9 fields overview and doing a deeper dive into the physical field. It's the real world foundation that determines whether all of the other fields hold. So why the physical field first? Every other field of capacity depends on your physical foundation, your physical body. When the physical field fails, your physical body fails, every other field collapses with it. You cannot maintain emotional regulation from a dysregulated nervous system. You cannot sustain intellectual clarity with compromised brain function. You can't create from depleted physical energy. You've all witnessed or experienced this. You know it to be true. Here's what I found in my journey. The first one is movement. And I'm not talking about exercise. Exercise is a purchased activity, gym membership, it's fitness classes, it's something you do separate from life. Many of us treat it as just a purchased activity, and it's very hard for us to habitualize that. Movement it's an embedded requirement. Walking to accomplish your tasks, lifting to build and maintain, physical engagement integrated into your daily function. Many of us often treat exercise as optional, and it far too often gets abandoned. So movement is structural and non-negotiable. Movement is life. What I found is that generationally focused and generationally minded families maintain physical standards across generations. Whether it's some of my colleagues taking their daily walks on the beach, regardless of the weather, helping somebody build a garage or helping a friend with a project, that's fantastic manual labor and character building. Sports is tremendous movement in terms of generational patterns. And the physical capability is a family expectation. If we're going to do not only our best for ourselves, but also our family members, regardless of where we are in our lives, whether we're a teenager or we're getting into our vocation years, into our post-college or post-education years, and then moving on to having a family and a spouse and grandparents and everything else. Physical capability and maximizing your physical capacity to support your family is meaningful. The families that collapse by second generations, they abandon physical discipline. The first generation builds capacity through physical engagement, but then what often happens is the second generation eliminates the physical requirement. They don't take it seriously. It's not ingrained in them through discipline from the first generation. And then beyond the second generation, the third generation inherits bodies that can't handle stress, they can't handle complexity, or even sustained working effort. We're seeing a lot of that today in our different generations, and especially in many of our youth. Not all of them, but many of them. There's a cascading effect to this. Physical collapse, it cascades through every field. Chronic stress destroys your emotional regulation. Brain fog eliminates your intellectual clarity, depleted energy if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're really not eating a good diet and you don't have the habitual movement, that depleted energy just kills your creative capacity. All that being said, there's 6 foundational pillars of physical sovereignty. Physical sovereignty means you have the capacity to maintain your physical foundation without external dependence. My joints ache, I got to take an Advil. Make a conscious effort to get your capacity so that you're not dependent on external anything. Of course, you got to eat the right food, you got to consume the right water. I'm talking about outside of that, artificial external dependency, not the essential things that you need. The next pillar is your nutritional sovereignty. I cannot overemphasize this one. This one is there's so much information out there right now about nutrition. The average diet has minimal to zero nutrition today. If you have the opportunity, grow food wherever possible. If you can't grow it yourself, source it from local known producers that are family friends, know the ingredients of what you're cooking. If you can't pronounce it, you shouldn't be eating it, is a good rule of thumb. Filter your water. So much of our water is contaminated nowadays with microplastics and BPAs and other things. Eliminate the ultra processed foods. If it's got a barcode and a list of ingredients a mile long, it's got to go. There's no nutrition there. In fact, you're actually sabotaging yourself if you're consuming those ultra processed foods. Someone told me a long time ago, they said, look, you eat as close to nature as possible. And if it's got more than a handful of ingredients in it, you should be interrogating that and figuring out what it is that you're consuming. Odds are that you probably shouldn't be consuming it. So, what am I doing from a nutritional perspective to build my physical capacity? The first thing that I discovered was the wonder of fasting. First of all, full disclosure, fasting is different for everyone. 16 hours of not eating has worked wonders for me for physical capacity building and maintaining and expanding physical capacity. Fasting is a requirement. It's not optional. In fact, it was one of the things that I introduced that I had not before in prior years, and it was a game changer. Another capacity builder is what I've discovered about a protein and fat rich diet, minimizing carbohydrates. I'm not eating any more than 20 grams of carbohydrates a day. I'm eating protein and a bunch of fat through cheeses and bacon fat and, animal fats every day. That's been a game changer. I've done, a keto diet in the past and got myself into ketosis, and yeah, it worked very well. But because I had not incorporated these other things into my capacity building and knowledge, it was temporary. It wasn't sustainable. 90+% of people, 95+% of people out there are going through the same thing. In fact, I would argue that the vast majority of you listening to this have all gone through that. If you've explored a keto diet in any way, shape, or form, and you haven't done the other things that I'm talking about to make it sustainable, you probably just regressed right back into carbohydrates. Next is filtered water. I filter my water through a Berkey water filter. When you're filtering your water and you're doing it on a regular basis and you become accustomed to that pure water, boy, can you tell, can you tell when it's got stuff in it? And it's okay, if you got to go get a glass of water at a restaurant every now and then, okay, got to drink a bottle of water once in a while, great. There is no perfection here. We're going to strive for 80%. If we can get it to 90% consistency, great. But we can strive for perfection, but it's very difficult to get there. I'm speaking from experience. The next one in terms of nutritional sovereignty is vitamin K2 supplementation. I was aware of this, but I really didn't understand what it meant. Vitamin K2 is essential for vitamin D3, which uses calcium to rebuild your body. D3 literally rebuilds your body's foundation. What K2 does is K2, it's like a foreman on a job site. The foreman tells who to put what where and in what way. Vitamin K2 is the foreman that's instructing vitamin D3 where to put the calcium. If you don't know about K2, you must introduce K2 into your nutritional sovereignty regimen. Here's why. If you don't take K2 and you're supplementing D3, or you're getting a bunch of sunlight in D3 without taking K2, what that D3 is going to do is it's going to, more often than not, deposit that calcium in your arteries. This is one of the primary causes of arterial calcification. At the end of the day, introducing K2 into your regimen really helps build nutritional sovereignty. And again, none of this is medical advice. This is just my experience. The last one in terms of nutritional sovereignty that's essential is proper magnesium supplementation. If you're not, I'm telling you right now, you're not getting enough magnesium. The last statistic that was out there was 70-ish% of people in our country are grossly magnesium deficient. It's a real issue. Magnesium is essential to proper cellular function and essential to your nutritional sovereignty. Look, at the end of the day, you control what goes into your body. You make the choice. Next is your sleep architecture. There are countless interviews and discussions out there showing that most of us are not getting the appropriate amount of sleep. We're out of our natural circadian rhythm. With the advent of our computer screens and our phones and everything else, we're getting all this artificial light, which is totally thrown off and screwed up our circadian rhythm. Here's what works for me. Consistent sleep schedule. Going to sleep and then also what time you wake up. I find myself, what I've done in terms of my alignment and building my capacity, what I found is I'm going to bed anywhere from 9:30 to 10:30. I'm always trying to work within that window. And then in the morning, I'm waking up anytime between, let's say, 5:30 and 6:30. I wake up refreshed with a level of vitality. Beyond those few things, here's what I do specifically. I'm always trying to make sure that I'm maintaining about 8 hours average of sleep. Everyone's different. Listen to your body. Your body's going to tell you, hey, I need more sleep. Sleep is when your body is rebuilding. When you compromise that rebuild, you're compromising your physical capacity. That is reconstruction time. That is rebuilding time. Don't compromise it with bad sleep. The next pillar is eliminating the toxins. Glass and stainless containers instead of plastic. Natural materials in your home environment as much as possible. The big one that is really coming into my field of view as more research is coming out is microplastic exposure. We have so saturated our environment with microscopic plastics. I can't imagine that's very good because it's not natural for your body. So do what you can to minimize microplastic exposure. Every time we put food in a plastic bag, every time we cook in a plastic dish in a microwave, or we're drinking coffee out of Keurig, that hot water is interacting with the plastic container and it's discharging microplastics into the coffee that you're consuming. The cups that we're drinking from at Starbucks or McDonald's or wherever it is, as soon as hot water hits that, it starts discharging microplastics. So be mindful of that. When I go to Starbucks now, I bring one of my stainless tumblers and they're happy to put my coffee in that. Here's what I'm doing to minimize toxins. I'm filtering my water. I'm using mostly glass containers for food storage, conscious reduction of plastic exposure. Remember, even though you can't see it, you should know that it's still affecting you at the cellular level. The next pillar, medical sovereignty, making well-informed individual decisions and not blindly kowtowing to what a doctor says. Inform yourself. Don't just blindly do what they tell you to do. The doctors, the nurse practitioners, they are a godsend. We cannot maintain our physical capacity without them. When you're having a conversation with your medical practitioner, know what the hell you're talking about so that you can have a constructive conversation. We must have the doctors. We must have the nurse practitioners. They are essential to our society and civilization. Modern medicine is a gift, but it does not alleviate your responsibility to take care of your medical sovereignty and doing what's right for you. Build your health capacity rather than depend on disease management structures. The entire pharmaceutical industry is mostly built around disease management. It's not built around root cause and understanding what the fundamental structural problem is. They're not prevention oriented. There are many doctors out there which actually appreciate someone who is doing the homework and that does take their medical sovereignty seriously. Have a constructive dialogue with your practitioner. Have a foundational conversation with them in terms of, your blood work. Hey, doc, how are my D3 levels? Am I over 70 or 80 nanograms per milliliter of D3 saturation in my blood? That's where optimally you should be. With a vitamin D3 saturation of 70 to 80 nanograms per milliliter in your blood, the likelihood of you getting sick is very close to zero. Take advantage of those annual physicals, those 6-month physicals and the blood work. Have that interactive conversation with your doctor. Really focus on investing in prevention and not treatment of symptoms. When you take a preventive stance in terms of your medical sovereignty, you're going to minimize or eliminate health crises in your life. I am a living example of that and will continue to demonstrate that. I've discovered from building my capacity, I've mapped 8 daily practices. The first one, hydration. Number 2, vitamin D3. Number 3, micronutrients like vitamin K2 and magnesium. Number 4, a fasting regimen. You must fast in some way, shape, or form. Just find what is aligned best for you. Number 5, Tai Chi. It is absolutely essential to the activation of the vagus nerve and your lymphatic system. Number 6, just movement in general. Number 7, sleep. Making sure that you've got a consistent number of hours of sleep every night. If you're not getting good sleep, it cumulatively extracts your physical capacity. So sleep, make sure you're getting your consistent hours of sleep. And then number 8, sexual energy. Recognize that any sexual activity depletes your cellular resources And those resources take about 7 to 14 days to fully regenerate. It affects your clarity, it affects your vitality, and your decision quality across all of your fields. This is why the physical field is the foundation for every other field you'll build. The preservation math says that families that don't have physical sovereignty in the late ages, they're hemorrhaging hundreds of thousands of dollars. How many times have we witnessed friends and family who've retired and they saved all this money and 2 years later they're dead? Each and every one of you has a story like that. Don't tell me you don't. It happens more often than we'd like. That's because they weren't maintaining physical sovereignty. A family that does pay attention to physical sovereignty and the architecture of it, they have movement embedded across generations. They've avoided chronic diseases. They've avoided medical costs. They've extended their work capacity by not being sick. They've been able to maintain and regulate their emotions much better. You're going to maintain a level of intellectual clarity later in life. You're going to have more creative energy available to you. Oftentimes, they're finding themselves at $1 million or more financial advantage over the family that did not. That difference isn't about being healthy. It's about physical sovereignty. It's literally about building a life structure that maintains your capacity across all the fields of life. This ministry isn't just about receiving information, it's about building capacity. Put what I've shared into practice. Just one thing, one small thing. Put it into practice, see what happens. I believe you'll be surprised at the results. A quick reminder about this fellowship. Your fellows, you're not clients, your peers building using the resiliency code architecture. You're here to contribute capacity. I'm extremely grateful for you being here and listening. And with that, I'm going to close out this week's ministry. Having prepared through this fellowship, we return to participate from our individual sovereignty, carrying the coherence generated here into our respective fields in service to the lawful design of life and the continuation of this work. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you next week.